Hello and welcome to the Hurling Show here with Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Michael Verney of the Irish Independent. Michael, how are you doing?
How are you, boy? What's the crack?
I'm not too bad, anyone who wants to get any questions or comments into us, send them in as soon as you can. Hashtag the Hurling Show.
No people sending in angry things about Cheltenham and bad tips that they got last week as well.
You would be a fair expert on that. I presume you've come home with the wallet a little lighter.
No, I wouldn't do too much myself now, to be honest with you, because I think once you're handing out tips, your kind of reputation is on the line. There's no need to put your cash on the line as well.
Right, okay, so a coward as well. Right, I see. Big weekend in hurling was. Yeah. I suppose the main thing that stood out is Dublin beating Tipperary, first time since 1946 beating Tipperary in a competitive match inside in the good field in Thurles, which of course the field doesn't look great at the moment.
Oh, it's poor, isn't it?
Yeah. Something needs to be done with that field. Waterford put the beat down on Clare, 31 points to 114, which is, they scored twice as many scores as them.
And until I saw that game, I just thought, oh no, here's a classic example of, without being smart, the ball being too light and then putting over balls from 120 yards, but it wasn't like that at all. I don't think, say 1 point from inside their own half maybe, serious performance. Galway,
321, Wexford 311. Very convincing.
You wouldn't have envisaged it like 20 minutes into the game when they were down, I think 2-4 to 5 points or something like that, in fairness.
Even half time it was nip and tuck. Now we know last week already that Limerick annihilated Laois 222 to 11 and Cork 215, Kilkenny 116 in the relegation quote unquote playoff down in Nolan Park, which is interesting as well because at the start of the league Cork went there and lost very meekly, and I know it's a nothing game in the sense that there is no relegation and it was just deciding which pot they'd be in for next year, but at the same time that's good for confidence to win in Nolan Park.
It is, of course, and of course it's bringing up this mad scenario though with Conor Delaney and Seamus Harnedy now, where the two of them were sent off, obviously different games, different incidents in the last round of the league. And I assume both managers and both county boards thought that if they didn't play in the last round or in the relegation match, that they'd both be free to play a championship. Yeah. But that's not, I don't know what's going to happen. I'd be very surprised if they're not free to play the first round of championship because they've missed a game. They would have been foolish to play them in that game even though they were told they were allowed. I'd imagine they'll get off, and I think there's something in the wording as well to do with it.
Yeah, that's a different competition.
It's a once-off game is what they said, but I'd imagine both would be off. Both would be huge losses if they were missing for the first round of the provincial campaigns.
Like Cork not having Seamus Harnedy against Tipperary is missing arguably your best ball winner. Now I know they've added Aidan Walsh and I'm sure he can win some ball too, but Seamus Harnedy, captain time after time, he's the guy who's going to win you the dirty ball.
He always stands up in fairness to him, yeah.
And Conor Delaney then looks like he's Cody's answer at full back as well, so I'm sure Cody...
Well, like if Conor Delaney was missing for the first round, will Cody go with someone completely different for full back? Will it force Pádraig Walsh to have to play full back over the next 8 weeks? So it's a big deal for both managers.
Very interestingly there in the last hour or so, the GPA sent out a survey to all their members. Now we have it coming up on the screen just here, a fresh survey, and basically the thrust of it is, in advance of the upcoming negotiations with the GAA, we are seeking confirmation or seeking feedback from all GPA members as to how we can enhance our support to all our members on and off the field. So there's 3 questions being posed, and the first one is, what additions to the squad charter would you like to see in the future? And in brackets, the squad charter outlines your basic welfare entitlement for expenses provision, nutrition, gear and equipment. So that's the first one. The next one is, let me just see now. What GPA services and programmes would you like to see more of as part of our player development programme? What new services and programmes would you like to see become available to GPA members to better support your personal development in terms of career, education, well-being, relationships, etc.? And the final one, in what ways could the GPA have more of an influence on the issues that have an impact on our games? Any thoughts on that as a former GPA employee?
Well, the last one is definitely the one that stands out. I'd say they would have been bit flabbergasted with the reaction they got at Congress for trying to get somebody onto the Central Council to have a say, basically, from a player's voice, shall we say. But the GAA are kind of still, it looks like they're keeping them just at arm's length when it really comes to like actual decision making and actually making decisions that are going to have an effect in the game. So they're still trying to get into a circle there. I don't think they're maybe as far into the circle as they'd like to be.
Yeah, but there's a sort of an assumption across the board, across the country, that they're taking the soup in that they're getting funding from the GAA, that therefore they're now...
That deal is currently being negotiated again, actually.
But that they're no longer able to be upstarts or no longer able to cause revolution because they're inside the tent now.
Yeah, I kind of understand why that perception would be out there, and like in order for like to be, if you're going to be an upstart, the deal with the GA is not going to happen. Do you know what I mean? So they kind of have to be, and you're kind of sitting on both sides of the fence, which is kind of difficult.
It's not good enough, really. Like, I mean, to be fair, like player welfare issues would be sort out the schedules. Like, get in line with the CPA and say, let's fix the fixtures. Let's not be too worried about junkets here, there, and everywhere. Let's not sit in our hands and put out a survey after the event with the Super 8 when you can no longer. Sort of influence whether this is going to happen or not. Don't sit in your hands with the Dublin Croke Park issue. So get out there and get active and try and make sure that the fixtures are sorted, because every county player is a club player. And if you look after the club player and look after the schedule there, everyone is going to be looked after.
I think the one with the CPA is the big one. Like, and I think that there definitely needs to be more communication between the two of them, because they do go hand in hand. While the inter-county game stands alone by itself, like 99% of GA players are club players, and while the GPA, obviously it's not numerically or physically possible to cater for all club players, there should be more communication between the two of them, and they should be working hand in hand to sort out a fixture schedule that will work for club players and that will work for county players as well.
Yeah, I'd have an issue with the fact that this is just type in your answer rather than, like, the GA or GPA need to be consulting with players and try and figure out what they want from their schedule.
Now there is regular consultation going on with players.
Right, but they need to be a voice, and a consultation with what I presume the GPA representatives from each county.
Well, like on that committee board, their NEC, there would be there'd probably be about 17 different county teams represented on it. So they're taking the views of their panels back to their national executive as well, and obviously they're chatting to their reps on a weekly, probably bi-weekly basis, I'd say, at this stage, and getting views.
But at this stage, something should have been done from the GPA. A strong stance should have been established at this point, and they should have been a vehicle for change and sort out these fixtures, and yet that's not what they're doing. And they say that mightn't necessarily be our remit. Well, if looking after players is your remit, whether it's club or county, that should be the first port of call, because I'll tell you, it dominates your life. Like our club seasons with Coola have lasted 9 months for the last 2 or 3 years, which is the same with an inter-county team nearly every year. And I'm telling you, it absolutely dominates your life, and especially when you don't know what the schedule is going to be for the coming months, not being able to plan anything at all. Like, this is the biggest player welfare issue out there, and that needs to be sorted.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. It's an absolute kit. As a club player, not to know what you're doing.
No, the GPA though, they need to be getting out in front of that. So we all know what's the issue, but the GPA need to be getting out in front of it.
They need to be getting out in front of it in the sense that there needs to be something, there needs to be in concrete. The county fixtures need to be in concrete, and therefore the club fixtures can be in concrete as well. And that's the big problem.
Who's in a better position than them to help?
Well, they have a position of some power. So yeah, I would suggest they could use it a bit more. Yeah.
Okay, so now you have me blood boiling on that one. But
you never said your blood was boiling before you started.
Let's move on to the performance of the weekend. Ballyhale Shamrocks 228, St Thomas's 211.
Did they miss? Can you actually remember? There was if they missed 3 shots at goal, I'd be surprised.
It was an outrageous performance on the biggest day of the year. Tommy Walsh actually, he confronted one of the great Kilkenny myths in light of Henry Shefflin's success with Ballyhale when he spoke on OTB AM this morning.
I thought it was interesting, TJ Reid's, I suppose, comments after the final as well, Ger, in that he said, he knows the modern game. So the modern game isn't just get the ball and lump it up. It's also not going back and playing sweeper for 70 minutes. You have to be able to play both styles. And Ballyhale looked like they did that Sunday. When they had to go the short passing route, they done it, which was very... we seen it for one of the Mullins, Patrick Mullins' point in the second half. Owen Reid got the ball in the corner, short little pass out, I think it was to TJ. Then he did another 10-yard pass across the centre, and Patrick Mullen, about 65 yards out, with a guy just about to block him, got away the shot quick enough to put over the bar. And then we seen in the first half, I suppose, the long balls that was going into Colin Fennelly. So they were able to mix and match there.
Yeah, so you're saying that a Kilkenny man does do tactics?
Well, a Kilkenny man has always done tactics. Like, I suppose the perception is that Brian Coley doesn't do tactics and his management team, but as being part of his management team, or as being part of his team, we'll say, and that for 10 or 15 years, it mightn't be called tactics, but we definitely do something.
You can be sure they do tactics. You can be absolutely sure of it. I must point out, Michael Fennelly, he has now captained the team to an All-Ireland title at club and county level.
It's fair going.
That's incredible. His brother Colin Fennelly scored 2-4 from play, and he, of course, is going to get the goat of the week. You can see him up there. Look at him in action, powering away from 2 men.
They were very clever. I thought they were very, very smart, particularly in the first 20 minutes. They literally, anytime they got the ball, anytime Ballyhale got the ball 30 yards even out from the goals, it was in on top of him, get it in any way you can possibly get it in. If it's in front of him, great. If it's on top of him, better again, probably. They just lured the ball in on top, and they made hay with that in the first few minutes. By the time Fintan Burke had gone back there, and he still had a bit of trouble there, but by the time he went back there, the damage had kind of really been done. That goal was outrageous. Like, that's the stuff. You'd be standing down the hurling field trying to turn the hurl like that. You could try to do it 100 times and it wouldn't work. It was outrageous.
Yeah. Henry Sheffield, what a debut season as a manager.
So it's outrageous, really, isn't it? Like, I would have had question marks about how it would have went. Like, even just from watching some of his kind of performances on the Sunday game and that, I would have been interested to see. Like, and he kind of always said, I won't go into management for a while, I'll leave it for a while. And then obviously circumstances changed. He thought Ballyhale were underachieving, and well, they're not underachieving anymore anyway, in fairness.
I think we've got a tweet here, an image of a tweet from Buff Egan talking about the age profile of this team. He goes, Ballyhale, some team, 10 under-21s, 3 of the starting 15 still in school in Kieran's. And actually 3 days after, Owen Cody led St. Kieran's to their 6th All-Ireland final.
Yeah, Dean Mason's in the goals as well, yeah. It's phenomenal. And they actually got it unbelievably hard to win the under-21 last year. I think it was extra time, or a very, very, very tight game against O'Loughlin's to win the Kilkenny under-21.
Was that the one where the Mullins weren't playing?
No.
Oh, that was the year before?
Yeah, that was the year before, yeah. So, like, it's fair going, and the confidence, like, Adrian Mullen, like, every time he got the ball, you just thought he was going to score. They're just unbelievable at finding space as well.
He's the most likely to make that Kilkenny team this year.
I'd say so, yeah, because he's rangy enough at this stage as well. But I'd say his brother won't be his brother definitely be on the panel, Darren. I'd say he was very good cornerback. Saw him play centre back for Kieran's a few years ago. He's good. Evan Shefflin will be on the squad as well. But it just shows, like, there's a fair whack of them boys going to come into the Kilkenny reckoning in the next 3 or 4 years.
And TJ Reid, by all accounts on his Instagram, is after getting engaged as well, so congratulations to TJ Reid.
You know what to say though? Well, as Mickey said in Rocky, women weaken legs.
Say it in the Mickey accent.
Women weaken legs.
You're a bum rock. Right, let's move on from that. Fantastic win from Ballyhale Shamrocks. But we'll move on to another man who's had success at club level, which of course is Mattie Kenny, my manager there for the previous 5 years. He really is your quintessential hurling man, I have to say. I remember one time he gave me a phone call to talk hurling as he watched his daughter play camogie. So it was hurling inception. He couldn't just watch it. He had to ring and talk about it at the same time as well.
It's something I've always been interested in, because like, he does come from a particularly strong coaching background and was obviously coaching at Galway. Like,
well, they won an All-Ireland under-21.
That's right, yeah.
2011.
And he was in with Cunningham then as senior coach, basically.
Yeah, like, they won Leinster in 2012, yeah.
I always wondered about a lad like that. And in the Cola sessions, was it a case of him standing back, or was it a case of, I'm still a coach at heart, and even though he had Greg Kennedy there, that he was still in on top himself, doing a load himself, or what was the scenario?
He is as hands-on as it gets.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I remember the first couple of training sessions, his big thing was that he wanted to sharpen up the hurling, speed up the hurling. So you'd be doing a typical drill where you're standing 10 yards from me, and we're just smacking the ball over and back, over and back for, you know, whatever, 30 seconds or something like that. He wasn't happy with the speed at which we were doing it. So he actually started jumping into the drill himself. He has a nice strike of a ball. And he started leathering the ball. And I could see him leathering the ball, and I could see the fire in his eyes, and he got up to me and he started leathering it at me and screaming faster. So I gave him what he asked for, and I hit the ball as hard as I could, and like we were slugging it out for a few seconds, and then I hit a ball and it just hit the tip of his finger, and you know that pain of a slitter catching you on the tip of the finger. I could see his hand shaking, but he stayed going. And another thing was with the high ball, there was one of our wing forwards. He was after going up for a high ball, but kind of ducked out of it at the same time. So he got everyone around in a circle, and he said, lads, if you're going up for that high ball and you're going to get hit, take the hit. And he drew the hurley across his arm, or his hand.
His own hand?
Yeah, and we all went, oh, jeez. And then he said, and I mean it. And he just did it again. It's Max, and we were all going, oh my God. But he gets.
Had he taken the bamboo at his hands or something before and killed all the nerves or something?
I don't know, but we were all a bit like, what is this lad about? But like everything he did, it was basically showing, I'm not going to ask you to do it and I won't do it myself.
That's fair enough, yeah. And even like with that drill we were saying, like he literally leathered the ball. That's what he was able to do, so why can't you do it as well? Yeah.
And as well, if he wants to work on a game plan, he's going to tailor that training session so that you're working on exactly how you need to deliver the ball for that game, where he wants players. And I mean, obviously I don't want to give away anything that I think would necessarily be his game plan or anything like that necessarily, but he's very involved in it, and he's right out in the middle of the field. And I think the Dublin players, like, it went really well under Pat Gilroy last year, even though the results, like those 3 games in Leinster against Wexford, Kilkenny and Galway, they were in and around the lead.
Them all, in
the 70th minute of all of them. So they're not far away. And I think anyone who thinks they're far away, even before this Tipperary win, was they're a mile off the mark. You like even consider who's back or who has to come back yet. Mark Schutte hasn't played this year. Conal Keaney has to come back. Liam Rush wasn't playing. He has to come back. Shane Barrett, Cian O'Callaghan, Fionn McGibb.
The first 5 are all starters, definitely.
And McGibb was very good last year, and another player that people probably wouldn't talk about.
In the dressing room, what's he like? He seems like a quietish type of fella. I'd imagine that's a different kind of case when he's in the dressing room.
Yeah, it's fairly different. No. He's a very big presence in the dressing room, but he will want the players to take it over. And I'd say people like Chris Crummy in there are quite vocal, so he will definitely be trying to push it over to the players, because if you don't have a player-driven environment, and I know that's kind of a boring cliche that's said all the time, if you don't have it, you're kind of struggling. There was a very interesting tweet put out by the Don't Foul Twitter page, and I think we're going to get it up on screen here, and it was showing the forward touches.
This is serious. This is serious detail. Like.
So this is the Corofin players. For those listening on the podcast, I'll try and are watching, I'll try and describe it for you. He was basically showing the touches that all the Corofin players got during their club final win over Dr. Crokes, and more or less in that central quadrant between the D and the 65, the players weren't receiving possession there at all, which just shows that they were trying to tell Dr. Crokes, you can more or less put players in the middle of the field, but we're never going to have the ball in there. And the reason I bring this up is because it reminds me a little bit of what Dublin did against Tipperary the other day. And Tipperary weren't impressive, don't get me wrong, but you'd have, I'll move over to the tactics board here now. Tipperary essentially had Paddy Maher playing as the sweeper. Now Dublin had 2 men inside a lot of the time, and at times it would be Oisin O'Rourke on James Barry in there, and Cathal Barrett against Eamon Trollier-Dillon, who of course we know is full of pace.
That's not good now, even before that's not a good setup, having Barrett in front and Barry behind.
Yeah, and because Oisin O'Rourke has an unbelievable change of direction, at times he was 10 yards in front of James Barry. It happened a number of times. Now Cathal Barrett had a decent game in a lot of ways, but he got skinned for the first goal. And once or twice, like Eamon Trollier-Dillon is very, very hard to stop, and we've spoken about him a few times, but really, really tough to stop. Now Paddy Maher was playing as the sweeper, trying to sweep from there, and Danny Sutcliffe, probably not on a huge amount of ball in the first half, got on more in the second half. John Heatherton actually came on centre forward and gave as good a performance as I've ever seen from him. Absolutely excellent at centre forward as well. But I just felt that, just referring back to Corofin and how Dr. Crokes might have tried to have someone sitting in this area, Paddy Maher wasn't really a massive influence on the game, because Dublin were essentially playing to avoid him.
That's good, yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Which is what Mattie he'd be looking at, and all inter-county managers. Who are the big threats on the other team? Right, we're not going to give Paddy Maher the ball time.
That's such a simple tactic, but it works. Like, why you make a hero of him?
Well, absolutely. And I remember looking at one of the puck-outs, and it was interesting that Alan Nolan started in goal, because he had been replaced by Sean Brennan for the previous game. Now, Alan Nolan had made a mistake against Waterford.
That's right,
dropped in an easy goal. I'm sure he would have been disappointed, but Sean Brennan came in for the Laois game and got man of the match, got player of the week, by all accounts. Alan Nolan came back in for this game, and I'd say it's probably an experience thing, because he's played here before in Semple. But one of the puck-outs, you had four of the 6 Dublin forwards on the half-forward line, and you had the 2 full forwards in a straight line. Yeah. So what does that mean in a straight line in the square? So that means you have just nothing but oceans of space all around them. So I just thought it was very clever the way he sets the team up.
And like, I presume if they did win a ball here, was it a no-look ball inside? Because they know the space is in there?
No. The Dublin players, if they're going to win the ball, they're going to try and find someone in a better position and then pop it into corners.
Okay.
And try and work the ball back out and get it over the bar. Or if you have the pace of Oisin O'Rourke or the turn of direction of him and Eamon Trolley or Dylan, you're going to take your man on.
That's a nightmare scenario there, though, because if O'Rourke does go there, you know, you have all this area to run into here as the other forward, Dylan. Like, so it's not a good position for the full back line to be in there at all.
But even, like, again, if you're not considering Dublin a real challenger this year, and I certainly mean for Leinster and to qualify through Leinster and get to a Leinster final, just look at the half back line. Now, as I said, Shane Barrett was out the other day, but you had Darragh O'Connell playing wing back, who's obviously a very able deputy there if he's not midfield. Sean Moore in a centre back. Chris Crummy is the other wing back, arguably the best wing back in the country.
That's some launch pad.
Yeah, Owen O'Donnell is full back.
Yeah,
absolutely excellent. So that's a serious Dublin team.
Probably Cian O'Callaghan and maybe Paddy Smith or whatever. Yeah,
Cian O'Callaghan wasn't even available. You know, he was injured. So that just shows you.
Yeah, it's a serious team. They have a serious squad, to be fair.
They have, and they're going to be against Limerick in the league semi-final this weekend in Nolan Park. I think they're two teams that, in some ways, now Limerick will certainly be favourites and rightly so, but they match up well in a lot of ways in the sense that both have a lot of speed. They'll take you on. They're big, powerful men. So I can't see Dublin not being in with a shout during this game.
It'll be very competitive, I'd say. There'll be no more than a score or two in that, I'd imagine. It's an interesting test for Dublin. Limerick will be expected to win.
Yeah.
Book the Preston League final, but it'll be an interesting test, and it'll be a huge. It's a huge carrot for Dublin if they were to win. Like, imagine a league title for Mattie, and he's only in there 4 or 5 months. Like, I was saying to you, like, off air, the league. Like, forget this notion of the league not meaning anything. The league for the 4 counties that are left now would be massive. Imagine what it would do for a young Dublin squad, like the belief that it would bring them that they could actually win a national title. Limerick, it just cements the fact that, okay, there's absolutely zero hangover here from the All-Ireland last year. We are the team to beat. Galway, after being betting on All-Ireland final last year, coming back for a bit of redemption probably, and then Waterford with a new manager as well after a terrible last year. It's a statement straight away. So I think it's massive for the 4 teams.
Yeah, Galway and Waterford in the other semi-final. 3 of the 4 teams left have won a league title this decade. We saw the belief that Dublin got in 2011 winning it. Limerick haven't won it for 22 years, so I'm sure they'd be interested in winning one. Quick video then on Liam Sheedy. He spoke after the defeat to Dublin and he says the side never found the rhythm.
You know, we knew Dublin were, they topped 1B, so we knew they were going to come with a loss, and obviously they played with a breeze in the first half. They got out of the blocks really quick and got into a few points of a lead. I thought when we got it back to 1-7, I thought we sort of had our finger on the pulse at that stage, but didn't really feel we found rhythm in that first half. We went in 4 points down, and to be fair to Dublin, they were probably full value for it, but we probably did have some chances in that first half that we didn't take, that we'd expect to take, and that would be disappointing. But we had a chat at half time. We didn't feel that we were there was a strong breeze there, so we didn't feel we were in a really, really bad position, and we came back out, and within a few minutes we had it back to 13-all and thought we might push on. But it was a day we really struggled to find the ball between the posts. We had 18 wides, I think they had 6. If you're going to miss the target 18 times, generally you're going to pay a price for it. And Dublin, I thought, were spirited. I thought they showed the greater hunger on the pitch. I thought they outworked us over the course of the 70 minutes, and from our point of view, that's very, very disappointing.
One thing that stood out to me as I was listening to the commentary on Tipp FM during this game, and Stephen Gleeson and James Woodlock were doing it, that there was sort of also a presumption, and I don't mean anything bad towards either of the lads with this, but there was also a bit of they presumed that Tipperary would beat Dublin and that it was seen as a great shock. But I mean, I've said all along that this Tipperary team is going to have to go through a period of pain before they get to where they need to go. And with a performance like that, I know there was 18 wides. I know they had Alicante the week before. Maybe there was a delayed onset of tiredness. But they look a bit away from it at the moment. Yeah,
I'd say most people probably presumed they were going to win. But you have to remember that before the Cork game, Tipp had been very disappointing. And as they always say, one swallow doesn't make a summer, and it's definitely not going to make their season one big performance. And to be honest with you now, and to use horse racing terminology, Cork were the biggest examples of what looked like non-triers that day. Cork were definitely not at the races, or didn't look like they had the interest in at the races. So on the counter argument to that, then Tipp's performance was totally blown out of the water, and how good they were was totally blown out of the water.
Tipp have lost 4 of 6 games. 3 of those 4 they've lost by a point.
Yeah.
Just 5 goals scored, which is very un-Tipp-like, I would say. What really stood out to me is does this Tipp team have the athleticism? Right, so coming into it, people would say Dublin wouldn't have the hurlers for Tipperary.
That's I don't go that argument
but I
anymore,
think there would be some lazy analysis by some people, and I'm not saying pundits, I'm not saying supporters, maybe a mixture of both. But rather than did Dublin have the hurling for Tipp, and plenty of them do, by the way, did Tipp have the athleticism for Dublin? So I was even trying to think, who on the Tipperary team would you say has searing pace?
Cathal Barrett.
And going through it, I was like, Cathal Barrett, Michael Breen, Jake Morris maybe, Seamus Callinan of the starting team, maybe Jake Morris that came on. Dan McCormick is in there, he's got good pace. But you could say 2/3 of the team at least of Dublin have a lot of pace.
Yeah, no, it is a big thing, and I think people are only starting to realise it now. Like I said to you before, like pace is a skill now. Like pace is...
Well, it's worked on in the gym.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
over a period of time.
It's massively important. If you're coaching young players now, like the one thing you're going to even start developing at 7, 8, 9, 10 is pace, footwork, making sure you're able to move, making sure you're athletic. I'm not saying that the Tipp fellas aren't athletic, they're very athletic, but pace would not be silky smooth touch and lovely striking and crisp kind of like point taking and goal taking is what would stand out in your mind straight away, not searing pace. And it's a difficult one, like, yeah.
And just throughout the game, and actually another thing that ties into athleticism would be size and power. Caught just one contested high ball that I noticed throughout the whole game, or it's the only one that I kept note of.
But who's going to catch it apart from Paddy Matter in the half-back line? Who's going to catch it in the half-forward line?
So this is the thing, don't necessarily have the speed or enough of it, don't necessarily have the power, physical power in the air. Of course Paddy Matter's huge and Ronan Maher can catch a ball. But I mean, that's definitely an issue. That's why
I'm surprised that they're not playing more through the lines, and they're not maybe going shorter with the puckouts and not looking for midfielders and playing more on their terms.
Do you know, actually, and again, maybe the fact that the field is not great at the moment, maybe the weather, it's obviously going to get firmer and get faster. A lot of the short puckouts were messed up, like players overdoing it and gifting scores basically to Dublin. We said the 18 wides. John McGrath was taken off early. He's normally one of Tipp's most reliable players.
Can I just say, apart from the Cork game, he hasn't looked himself. I know he's only been used sparingly at times. I don't know if he was carrying a knock or what.
Yeah, he was very good as a roving wing forward.
Yeah.
He tried a similar thing on Chris Crummy there. It certainly didn't work out on that occasion.
To me, he's an inside forward as well.
Yeah, he's a threat close to goal.
Where did Jason Ford play? I didn't see any of this game.
He was full forward and then he was out wing forward at other spells. Callinan started centre forward, wasn't in the game in the first half, moved into full forward. Niall O'Mara went centre forward, and after playing okay in the first half, he wasn't in the game as well.
Yeah.
So there's an awful lot of Tipp players there at the moment from that performance only. If we just isolate that, very disappointing. Of course 18 wides could change everything.
Yeah.
There was a couple of misses that were directly in front of goals with nobody on them onto 21. So it was really on Tipp, like, so maybe it's not the end of the world.
It's going to be hard to turn it on though.
And that
you know what I mean? Like, and that's why the 4 teams in the semi-finals will be happy going into championship, unless they get absolutely hockeyed at the weekend. They'll be happy with basically how they've played the graph their whole way through the league. You know what I mean? Whereas Tipp, up and down, really, you know.
We're going to talk Wexford now, and on the line we have a man who lined out for the model county for 10 years. David Redmond, how are you doing?
How are you doing, lads?
We're not too bad at all.
That's good.
It's year 3 under Davy Fitz. Can you just tell us, just going back to year 1, so you had a lot of improvement under Liam Dunn, and it maybe started to stall a little bit in his last season or two. Can you tell us what Davy did and how he came in and changed things?
I think, like, we did do a lot of good things with Liam, but when Davy came in, I suppose, it's Davy Fitzgerald. Everybody knows Davy well and knows his antics. But first and foremost, he had been there and he had done it with a team like CLARE, and Wexford would consider themselves a similar type of team, and coming from a similar background. So, it was a major plus for us to get somebody of the calibre of Davy Fitz. There was loads of different names came out at the time because I suppose it was a young, ambitious Wexford team, but Davy came out of the woodwork, and it was a huge shock to everybody. But it was a serious man to be put in charge.
And was there a culture shock in season 1 in terms of having him in the dressing room? Was he very different? What was he like?
Sure, Davy, he's a character, and there was a bit of a shock, all right, from the very first time we did meet Davy. We met him, I remember, in a hotel up in Gorey, and I think he shocked us after about 1 minute because man is seriously detailed in what he wants. Very, very tactical. Knows what way he wants hurling to be played, and I suppose we were not used to that. So he really set out to stall on day one, and I think guys just got really excited by it. Really excited. And when we got down and we started training and we started implementing different game plans, you know, that's what players want, and that's what you look forward to.
Just, David, how intense, it's always talked about how intense Davy's trainings are, and I know there was a time there, I think he trained nearly every day in the month of January, one of the years. Just how intense and full on is the training?
I suppose the trainings are a lot like Davy himself. Very full on. Like, so, no, I think when you go training, you're getting 100% out of training, whether the training is 20 minutes long or whether the training is an hour and a half long. It is quite intense, but I suppose he needs it to be intense, and he needs the training to be as close to a game as possible. So I think that's one thing that did work well for us. At times the trainings were probably tougher than the games.
Really, yeah. And in that first season, you had that league win at Nolan Park, the first in Donkey's years. You then beat Kilkenny in the championship as well, and made it to a Leinster final. So it seemed like that must have been an amazing first season, and everyone must have been buying into it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We were on the crest of a wave. You know, and I went my whole career without actually beating Kilkenny, and then Davy comes along the first year, and you know, we beat Kilkenny in the league and in the championship. So, you know, you have to understand that something must be going well then, if that's the case. But like we were playing Limerick, we beat Limerick. We played Galway up in Galway, we beat them. You know, we were playing big teams and beating them, and we weren't quite used to that. So, yeah, as I said, we're on the crest of a wave. We were, and that's where we are right now. Actually, is we're playing the top teams and we're beating them. And I think since Davy's taken over, we've beaten every team out there.
Yeah, it's true. But last year you didn't quite kick on in terms of how far you were getting in the championship. Is there any reason why you didn't actually go a little bit further last year?
Yeah, last year was probably a little bit disappointing, especially after getting over Kilkenny and then coming along and them getting one over us again. Thought we were probably over that hump, but it's probably a certain amount to do with energy levels and conditioning, and I think now in year 3 there seems to be a change in that regard, and there seems to be an awful emphasis now on energy levels for championship.
And so you did quite well in the regulation games in the league. Came second on 6 points. That defeat to Galway, 321 to 311. How much of a blow would that be to confidence?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It comes across as a bit of a blow. I know from speaking to some of the lads themselves, they're very disappointed. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Our guys went out there expecting to beat Galway. Really expecting to beat them. Not like years gone by. Our guys were fully focused on beating them and knew that they could beat them. Probably got caught out tactically a little bit. You know, every team you're coming across now is trying to adapt to the way Wexford play. So, you know, we've done well against teams with the sweeper system, and now teams are coming up with a way of trying to counteract that. And I think Galway perhaps tried something different the other day, and it seemed to work.
And would you have any insight into what changed? Like last year, for example, when you played CLARE in Cork in the All-Ireland quarter-final, it very much seemed like the sweeper system had stopped working for you, that you were coming out of the back with the ball through maybe the likes of Sean Murphy, maybe the likes of, I can't remember if Kevin Foley went back there at some point during the game, and even Mark Fanning, and they were hitting ball upfield directly to the opposition sweeper, and it just seemed like there was a communication breakdown across the field.
Yeah, listen, and Wexford absolutely work on that system night, noon and day. Like, they understand it right down to the very last. You know, it's worked on continuously at training, and it is always evolving. That is one thing about the sweeper system, and it has evolved again this year with Kevin, and Davy will want to stay ahead of the rest by constantly evolving. But at times during a game, and it will happen, focus will just go, and sometimes what can happen, guys will forget what their job is for 5 or 10 minutes, and in some cases then it can break down. So you need everybody to be on the same wavelength and to be fully focused mentally for the entire game, because that's the only way it can work. It's quite a complex system once you break it down, so you really do need everybody doing their job as best as they can.
From the outside looking in, it looks like at times you'd see the cornerbacks in the opposition 21. Is it very much I know you probably don't want to give away the keys of the castle here and tell us everything about how...
I'd be better off if I didn't.
Yeah, but is there a sense that, as long as, if you're playing in the backs and you go forward, someone else knows they have to cover back, so it feels from the outside that the attempt is to have sort of, I don't know what it is, total hurling, in the sense that no matter where you play, you have a licence maybe to get forward, and then there's certain players who are taggers to man-mark the opposition. Am I stumbling somewhere near what you're trying to do?
Well, basically the way it is that if you have a sweeper there, it gives everybody the licence to get up the field and get involved and get scores and make scores and supply support runs. And I suppose number one is that every player needs to be comfortable on the ball. They really need to be if you're not comfortable on the ball in that system, you won't be able to play it. So I think most of our guys now, through all the coaching and the training they've been doing, have become very comfortable. So yeah, I suppose that's one dimension that we do have, is that our guys can score. We've got guys that can score from anywhere in any position. Even though the sweeper system comes across as being very, very negative, it actually allows us to provide a lot more attacking options up the field.
How difficult, David, is it as a forward? Like you were in centre forward there even for a while, I think 2 years ago. How much difficult is it for a forward when you know there's a man behind you, an extra man behind you as well, and then even for the full forward line, it's not the most glamorous of jobs, I'd say, to be trying to do.
No, it's not. I suppose it's not every forward's favourite job in the world when you've got a second man there, but there's always a plan to counteract that spare man behind you and take him out of the equation, and you'll see teams trying to do that now with Kevin Foley, and they would have tried to do it with Sean Murphy before. Our guys that are coming out with the ball know where the ball is to be hit, and it's as you said, it could be a communication breakdown or a tactic breakdown if the ball ends up in the sweeper's hand. So there are places in the field where the ball is to be put, and you're kind of expecting your teammates to put the ball there. Other than that, forwards, I suppose the number one job without the ball there in that case is to work very, very, very hard, and when you do get the ball, make sure you don't give it away.
One final question then about Wexford. How do you think they'll go this year? I mean, that was a significant defeat to Galway, but moving into Leinster now, it's a bit of a hotbed. Obviously, everyone expects all the teams to beat Carlow, but after that, Galway are obviously an exceptional team, got to an All-Ireland final after winning one the year before. Kilkenny are nearly always in the final, and then Dublin look very strong as well.
Our lads definitely wholeheartedly think that they can beat anybody in Leinster, no problem. They can beat them. I'd imagine now they're going to go back and do their homework and come up with a way now of beating Galway when they do come across them, and trying something different perhaps. You might try something totally different. You never know with Davy. But what the Wexford public are really looking for now is probably silverware. We've beaten all the teams in the league or championship now. We're probably wanting to progress a little and get some silverware. I think there has been an emphasis now on making sure that there's enough energy to have a real cut at the championship now, a real cut at it. In the previous 2 years, there was an emphasis on doing very well in the league and staying in Division 1, but I honestly think now that there's a lot in reserve now for the Wexford team, and I think now they're going to go off and probably review the league and probably add a couple of different things to their game plan, and we should probably see them kick on to another gear now for the championship.
David, can I just ask you, I know when Frank Frannery was working with Ian Owlert, he had Sean O'Donnell there doing kind of analysis and stats and things like that, and obviously he was kind of the man, one of the many men behind the Limerick success last year. Can you just tell me what exactly he brings to the table? I've heard his level of video analysis is off the charts.
Absolutely, Sean. probably the best in the business, really, absolutely best in the business, and there's no surprise that he's been involved with those top teams over the years. Shawnee came down to Outlet with us, I think it was Frank's first year, and one of the first meetings we ever had was with Shawnee, and we sat down and we looked at all the games we played in the past and all the games we had probably lost in the past, and Shawnee gave us a breakdown of those games and what had probably gone wrong and what we needed to work on, and he done it very, very, very clearly, and he expressed it very simply for us, and then we were able to implement that in all our training sessions then forevermore, and it absolutely worked. And all we needed was, I suppose, it to be clearly expressed to us, and Shawnee's very good at that. Very, very good at it.
Have you been surprised?
You can have all the video analysis in the world, but it comes down to somebody just being able to break it down and express it clearly there.
Were you surprised at all that Limerick dominated the puck out in the All-Ireland and even in the matches coming up to that as much as they did, even just given you know how good he is? Yeah,
not one bit, not one bit. His stamp was all over it, to be honest. He's very good at spotting things. He's not just a man behind the camera. He's also a good coach. So he can see how hurling is being played. So no surprise whatsoever. Shawnee's top class.
We'll move on to Waterford then. Waterford had a thumping win over Clare at the weekend, 31 points to 114. The manager is, of course, Pádraig Fanning, who's taken over from Derek McGrath. David, you would have experienced Pádraig Fanning being part of the Davy Fitzgerald setup with Wexford. Can you tell us, what is Pádraig Fanning about? Because at the moment, nobody really knows all that much about him.
Well, sure, Pádraig, first and foremost, he is a solid hurling man and a solid Waterford man, and he's been around the block now. He's been involved with a few different teams, and he's learned a lot. I'd imagine he's learned so much over the last number of years, especially with Davy. With Davy, everybody picks up something here or there. He's also been involved with Laois. He was involved with Waterford years ago. I think he is probably the perfect man to come in after Derek McGrath, because he's not going to come in and pull up trees. He's not going to try and do something completely different. He wouldn't have much of a. He wouldn't have any ego. I'd imagine he's going to try and work with the players, and he's going to try and probably mix tactics up a little bit. Change it. He won't change a massive amount, but no, Pádraig is he's after learning so much, and I'd imagine he's going to try and bring some of that to Waterford.
It's funny, I think that's probably the sort of person they need, and maybe not this huge personality or anything, but Derek McGrath has left such a legacy there. If you had someone come in and just ripped up the whole script, I don't know how well that would work. So I think he seems to be facilitating a lot of what they did last year and just putting his own kind of little touches to it, which I think is probably a winning combination, because they all loved what Derek was doing.
Yeah, and he seemed like a facilitator and a real players man. And if you brought in someone who was autocratic or a very, heavy-handed voice in the dressing room, that probably wouldn't work. So I'm assuming, David, he's not a heavy-handed sort of manager, is he?
No, he wouldn't be. And as you said there, Michael, that's what could annoy maybe a Waterford team that have a lasting legacy with Derek McGrath. So he's a very smart man, so he'll know exactly what he needs to do to get the best out of those Waterford players. And by I suppose playing ball with all the lads and putting his own stamp on things to an extent, he should get on pretty well. And he seems to be getting getting a lot of different players now. And this year with the Bennetts really taking centre stage and introducing a few other players. I think in time he'll definitely put his own stamp on things, but I think we're going to see close enough to the Waterford team that we've seen over the last number of years.
Yeah, they've Tadhg de Burka to come back, Shane Fives, Dara Fives, Conor Gleeson, all potential all-stars to come back into the team. You mentioned the Bennetts there. Stephen Bennett is the top scorer in the league so far with 369 and 2 of those goals from play. Tommy Ryan has scored 4-5 from play. Shane Bennett has scored 3-5, including a sideline there, so a hat-trick from play as well. They've generally played 3 up front and then withdrawn the half back or half forward line after that. Does that tie in with what you reckon Pádraig's philosophy is on hurling? Just keep 3 men up front and just try and create space for them?
Yeah, I think probably one downside from a Waterford public point of view is the fact that they probably never had enough forwards up the field. Probably a little difference to the way Wexford play. Wexford used their defenders as extra attackers. Waterford probably didn't do the same. But he's definitely trying to keep more forwards up the field. Probably try and make the ball stick a little bit and then have support runners. But it seems to be working. The only thing you worry about there then is, are they conceding at the back? But they seem to be doing okay at the moment. We'll see what championship brings. But it'll be a small change there, I think. All right. Absolutely.
And a final question then, Galway against Waterford in the league semi-final this weekend. How do you see that one going?
I'm sure it'll be very, very interesting because, as you said, Waterford playing with a little bit of a change in style. So I reckon it's going to be helter-skelter, and I reckon there won't be a whole lot in it. That Galway side are a very, very good team with a handful of new players as well. So, I'd say it could be a cracker, to be honest. It could be an absolute cracker. Brilliant stuff, David. Best of luck for the year with Owlert, and enjoy watching Wexford over the summer. No problem. Thanks, lads. Thanks very much. Yeah, just looking back at that Wexford Galway game over the weekend, at times, did you enjoy the game first of all?
Not particularly, no. Not particularly. Wexford diving in on top of a Galway man every time they got the ball probably didn't help. They were a bit boisterous in their tackling, and they just
gave away so many frees.
They did. They gave Cotton McAllister no choice really. I know Davy chawed his ear off at half time, but and I'm sure he would have given them the benefit of the doubt a bit more in the second half as a result of that. But some of the tackling was just over the top, unfortunately.
I thought it was an unbelievably congested game.
I've never seen, can I just say, and we talked about it off air, I've never seen areas as congested as they were, and I stopped at one stage and had the guts of 22 bodies in around where the ball was, which is mad.
Everyone was in around the middle.
Yeah.
I think at times maybe Wexford had one guy up front, which was probably Conor McDonald more often than not. Joe Canning was roaming out the field from centre forward. Obviously had a very good game, being followed by Matthew O'Hanlon. We'll actually talk about that a little bit more later on. Kevin Foley back here, Sean Blahan, and maybe Concannon or Thomas Monaghan up there at front at different times. But it was just so unbelievably packed in the middle. I thought it just didn't make for a great spectacle at all.
No, there was 3 or 4 occasions in the game where they were proper rucks, and even if you flicked the ball, you were flicking it probably further into the ruck. There was just 20 bodies there, and it was just kind of going nowhere. I was surprised the referee didn't pick the ball up and even just turn around and
walk out the door.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah.
Let's talk about Canning versus Gleeson, Austin Gleeson this weekend. So it's a battle of the, 2 of the last 3 hurlers of the year. The 2017 hurler of the year, Austin Gleeson. 2018 hurler of the year,
2016 Austin Gleeson, 2017 Joe Canning.
Right, okay, you've made a fool of me again. But I think it's very interesting how the 2 of them reacted to being named hurler of the year. So Austin Gleeson won it in
16.
And he even said himself the next year that it weighed heavily on his head, and he didn't quite get to the same level. Even though he was still pretty good, he didn't get quite to the same level.
Got an All-Star in fairness the year, an All-Star nomination the year after, which is a sign of consistency at least.
But I am talking about his own, how he spoke about it himself. Whereas Joe Canning, it's fairly well documented on Off the Ball at this stage that I didn't feel he deserved to even get nominated for Hurler of the Year in 2017, and I would stand by that.
Jimmy Barron was Hurler of the Year,
yeah, and anything I said at that time in terms of why I didn't think he deserved to be at that stage, I absolutely stand over. In 2018, I thought he was a shoo-in for Hurler of the Year nomination, and if he had to win Hurler of the Year, I would have said, you know what, I don't have too many issues with that. Keane Lynch obviously ended up winning it. I think Canning's form has gone through the roof since he won it. And I wonder, is it because now he no longer has this idea of, I have to be an All-Ireland winner, I have to win Hurler of the Year, and everyone kind of is unable to dispute the fact that I'm the best.
It's validation, isn't it?
Well, that it has released him from that mental pressure, and he can now actually go out and be the hurler that we know he actually is.
No matter how much you talk about, if I don't win All-Ireland, it won't bother me. Pull the other one, in fairness, that's what you want. And you see it so many times with teams, say, for example, Kilcormac Colotty in my own county, they were struggling for 20 years trying to win a county title, won one in 2012, and it's just like this release valve, and you end up winning, I'm not too sure how many they won, they've definitely won 3 or 4 since.
Yeah.
That's the way it happens, the confidence it gives you, you're just playing with a lot less pressure, and that's mad to say that after winning All-Ireland, you're defending All-Ireland. You should be. Why would he be playing with pressure in a way? Why would he anyway individually? Because he had so much expectation on him. He was just probably enjoying it a lot more.
Put on to himself, by himself as well. Now he scored 50 points so far in the league this season, which is the second highest score. Just 5 of those from play. Is that? Do you see anything in that? So that's averaging about a point a game, maybe slightly less.
It's hard enough score from play when you're back so far a lot of the time too, and a lot of the time he's delivering in ball. Like I saw somebody the other day, someone on Twitter said that he rolled back the years with his performance the other day.
The 30-year-old rolled back the years.
It's fairly ironic, considering like I've seen him score, 2-9, 2-10, 2-11 in games, and it could be 1-3 or 1-4 from play. But like there was only a handful of occasions where he was under a puck out here, A lot of the time he was further back, so maybe that's a sign of his role changing to turn into more of a kind of maybe more of a forager, but I doubt that when it comes to championship.
Well, you tie back into Austin Gleeson, who started he started on the half back line almost early in the game, and then he moved up to the full forward line, and he was up there a lot, and he got a great score at the end of the game where he picked the ball up from his half back line, did a searing run, threw the ball over the bar. I actually think he doesn't look fully championship ready. I think he's probably...
No, he's not. He's definitely not.
I think he has a pound or two to lose, and by God, I'm the last person who's going to, be body shaming or anything like that, so I'm not attempting to do that at all. But I just know he's going to get a little bit fitter and trimmer between now and championship, and that his form will kick on again, because he had 5 points from play against Clare. They could not handle him at all. No,
it's someone I just look. TG Catter again showed the view, and it's great to actually see it, where the forward is trying to run from the free. You saw him and Jack Brown, and Jack Bryan trying to get a hand on him, and then when the camera panned to the free being taken, he's gone 40 yards over to the right and just spinning. He's this lovely little flick over the shoulder as well. They couldn't handle his kind of movement as well, and just on Waterford as well, it's a real freestyle. They're really playing like kind of freestyle, and Stephen Bennett's flick over the head for one of the Gleeson points as well. They look like lads that are enjoying their hurling, and there's no kind of shackles on them. But Gleeson will come on. He'll definitely come on, and by the time they get the championship, if he stays injury free, he's going to be a dangerous prospect. I still don't know if there's a definite role for him or what his role actually is. Remember, there's been a lot of confusion and people giving out he has to play centre forward, he has to play centre back, when he's playing a roving role and it doesn't work. So that went well the other day. It'd be interesting to see if it goes as well. Like in the 2017 All-Ireland, Gerard McInerney didn't play centre back. He followed Austin Gleeson, and Austin Gleeson touched the ball. So if they do something similar at the weekend, people will be calling for Gleeson to play in one particular spot. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes.
Well, it just shows, like, this year, if Austin Gleeson ends up being man-marked by, for example, Gerard McInerney, where would Gerard McInerney least like to play? Probably cornerback or something like that.
Yeah.
Because of his size profile. He'd love to be in the half-back line. Maybe he wouldn't like to be in the full.
He's an unusual one. I think he's nearly mobile enough to play everywhere.
Yeah, maybe, but I'd say Pádraig Fanning is thinking in those terms. Who's more important to their team, Joe Canning or Austin Gleeson?
Oh, Joe Canning. Joe, for consistency, for being consistent nearly the whole time, I would say Canning. Flashes of brilliance and flashes that can turn games, probably Gleeson. But when things are going wrong, Canning is more likely to deliver, I would say.
Who would deliver the most explosive moments? Or who has? Because they've both produced some incredible moments. And
Gleeson's probably more in his, what's he, 24, 23, 24? He's delivered some amount already.
Yeah, even like his debut goal against Cork back in 2014, I think.
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
Then you had Joe Canning's goal where he caught a long ball on the twist against...
JJ, that one, was it?
Against Kilkenny, 2015 Leinster final, maybe?
Oh, go back again, a good bit. Oh, that was on Joey Holden, There was one in Tullamore where he picked it up about 45 yards out and soloed in around JJ and put it to the net as well.
And then Austin Gleeson's goal in the semi-final in 2017 where he weaved through 1 million Cork defenders, I think.
Something like that, Then there's all the line balls from Canning as well, There's been a lot,
One thing about Gleeson, though, he did play centre-back against Dublin, orthodox centre-back. Danny Sutcliffe scored 4 points from play and ran the show, and Gleeson was hardly involved. But again, maybe that ties back into earlier what we were saying about Dublin. They're not going to play it on your centre-back. They'll have the centre-forward coming out and getting it, or they'll play it down the channels. Yeah,
given the amount of, you listed out a load of Waterford players that they're missing. Nearly all of them are backs. 2 fives, Tadhg de Burka, Conor Gleeson as well. There's four possible starting defenders, definitely 3 out of 4. So do you need to put Austin Gleeson in amongst that as well? Kind of looks like they're settling on Kevin Moore and playing a defensive role, either 7 or 6. So
which would be no harm either.
No, definitely not, no.
So one thing about the Canning performance, and I have a couple of images that I want to put up here, is that he roams an awful lot, but I'm wondering at times, is he inviting pressure on himself? Because the first goal of the game, Joe Canning went back deep into his own 45 and he ended up, Matthew Hanlon got on the ball, his marker got on the ball, brought into the other half of the field, hand pass for Conor MacDonald to hit a shot to the net. In this situation here, both Canning dropped back for a Wexford puck out. So Matthew O'Hanlon caught the puck out. He gave it over to Conor MacDonald. O'Hanlon got away from Joe Canning, who you can see circled there in the bottom half of the screen. Matthew O'Hanlon is running through on goal from the edge of the D, and Conor MacDonald's pass doesn't quite stick.
That's right, yeah.
So that's one example. We'll move on to the next example here, which is just coming up now. So it was
this is some ball in.
Yeah, but Canning's back in his own half here, just outside the 45. Matthew O'Hanlon picks up possession and there's nothing but space inside. O'Hanlon hangs up a ball for Conor MacDonald to catch over, I think that's Paul Killeen,
yeah.
Ends up with a goal. And,
can I just say, like, one-on-one, you would not be wanted anywhere near Conor MacDonald.
For a high ball.
If he's coming in late like that, forget about it. You're fair play if you're able to stop him.
It's game over. And then we've one final image coming up here as well. So this was another Wexford puck out, and both Matthew O'Hanlon and Joe Canning were dropping into the Galway half of the field. Matthew O'Hanlon touched it down for himself and the ball broke. He got it back and he's soloing through basically on goal there again. And I mean, that kind of ties in with how bunched the game was, that if you're dropping back, if you're dropping back as a half forward, you're actually more or less dropping back into the defence as the last man. Now Matthew O'Hanlon is soloing through on goals there and he gets hooked by Joe Canning. Now his work rate was really, really good.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking here is, as the roaming player who's trying to get back and make tackles, you know, there's like that bunched middle 8 or middle 10 at 10 or 12 at this point. Is he inviting pressure on his team too often? If you consider last year, Limerick's half-back line scored 3 points directly off him. Matthew O'Hanlon scored 2 points off him in the Leinster final a couple of years ago as well. So you can see the question I'm asking.
Yeah, no, the interesting thing about that is, if the team's not playing a sweeper, he's probably let go back to a certain point where they'll leave him off or someone else picks him up or something like that. But when they're playing with a sweeper, Matt O'Hanlon can follow him and can follow him everywhere. And he's probably thinking in his head, okay, my primary aim is to stop Canning getting ball forward, but if any chance arises or I see anything like that, I'm going and I'm going to be an extra man on an overlap in a forward attack. And he did that very well the other day, to be fair. So the sweeper kind of just gives him that comfort blanket that he can stay going forward as much as he wants. But you are inviting someone like that to say, okay, you're having an impact up here, I'm going to have an impact up here.
Because like Canning did have a good game, exceptional on the frees, won a load of tackles, and I know he got a lot of praise for it, but I think it's overly simplistic to just say he had a great performance and not look at the unintended consequences of how you're playing. Yeah. And like you're saying, it's okay, like for Matthew O'Hanlon, he knows I've got full licence to go here because I've got a spare man behind me. The question is, this weekend, if you're Waterford and you know that Joe Canning is going to roam everywhere, are you going to put someone on him who you think, yeah, they can do a man-marking job, but I also think they can do something going the other way?
They possibly could. I don't think they will. I think they'll let him off to a certain point. I think they'll let him off. I think that if he goes back inside his own 65, I'd say they'll let him off, because I think they're.
You think they'd let Joe Canning just roam and just be able to pick out a ball?
See, the area is going to be very congested anyway. If you looked at the Waterford CLARE game the other day, that area wasn't as congested as Wexford Galway, but it wasn't far off.
Oh,
there was no space.
You couldn't swing a cat in there.
There was no space inside that area. So I think they'll let him off to a point, because I think they're trying to play a bit more proactively as well. Not without, because they're obviously not playing a sweeper this year as well. So I think they'll try and keep their shape to some extent and try and keep the centre back in here. Even though Kevin Moran did track Tony Kelly at various stages the other day, and he tracked him everywhere he went.
Philip Mahoney was tracking him at the start, and he had two points gotten within a minute, and they were both lovely points.
Yeah.
So it's a replay of the 2017 All-Ireland final, so both teams would actually like to win this. Waterford came from a mile behind to beat them in the league recently. So who do you see winning this?
Can I just say on the Walsh Park thing, and I don't think it can be played down. It's one thing getting the games in Walsh Park. It's another thing having two massive wins under their belts in Walsh Park already.
Yeah.
And the crowd are so behind them. It seems like the Waterford public have kind of bought back in again. Not saying that they were ever out or anything like that, but they've really bought in and cheering lads off when they're coming off with 10 minutes to go, and the Brick nearly got a stand ovation coming onto the field in injury time. So I think they're in a really good place. I'd still probably favour Galway a point or two in a neutral venue. Very, very interesting game. As I said to you, there's an awful lot on the line, I think, for the four teams. I think I think Galway would like to play Limerick in a league final, if at all possible, and have whatever little monkeys on their back off before they play championship, and I envisage that being the final.
Yeah, I think there'll be a puck of a ball between the teams in both games. I just about edge for Limerick, and I'm very torn on Waterford, Galway. I'll just about go with Galway.
Just on the two Bennetts as well, it's great to see, like, they're literally standing right in here. They're standing right in the full forward line, and like Shane looks like Shane always had serious energy, but he was working against two men the whole time.
Yeah.
Now he's working against one, and he's in beside his brother, and the two of them just seem to energise each other.
It seems telepathic as well.
Yeah, it seems to be a great kind of mix. Like, Stephen had 17 shots at goal the other day, 16 points. He missed no free. He missed one shot from play. Like, that's outrageous.
And Pádraig Mahoney now on the freezes at the moment as well.
He had 5 points as well. Yeah. But again, that gives him a little bit more freedom maybe as well. He plays that kind of deep line wing forward as well and can score from anywhere inside 100 yards in. But Waterford, it was hard not to like a lot what they did. But you have to say, Clare were non-existent in the second half the other day.
Yeah, they were very, very poor as well. Like, Waterford, a lot of options this year, and certainly wouldn't rule them out for an All-Ireland. I think Tommy Walsh said it a few months ago, and he was nearly laughed at. But
you can't rule out anyone. That's the beauty of it.
That is the thing. Just one final mention then for Kieran O'Connor. There's going to be a fundraising game going on between Kilkenny and Cork. It's coming up soon, so have a look for details.
The end of this month, I think,
Yeah, so he's got his third bout of cancer, and I mean, with my own sister, there was the charity game between Tipperary and Kilkenny, and certainly it's great to see that happening between Cork and Kilkenny for Kieran as well. So we'll wish them good luck with that.
Great to see how GA communities, like, I think they had 125,000 raised in the first day or something like that. It's great to see how people rally together, particularly in times of need. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and people won't have far to look to find that online. That's it for the Hurling Show this week. We'll be back next Wednesday at 12:30 with the Gaelic Football Show. As always, every Thursday we will have the Hurling Show as well, and you can catch more GA coverage on Off the Ball from 7 o'clock this evening. Thanks very much to Michael Verney of the Irish Independent. We'll see you all next week.